Perhaps you entered that relationship with the most genuine parts of yourself: kindness, trust, and the hope that if you were patient enough, warm enough, she would eventually feel it and respond. You believe that anyone can change when they are loved in the right way. And for a long time, you truly tried to become the safe place she never had. Yet, the deeper you went into the relationship, the more clearly you sensed a strange mismatch you could not explain. It was no longer the ordinary ups and downs of someone in love. It felt as though you were trying to love a person who only felt safe when being adored. And in a way that was both painful and honest, you realized what you were facing was not sensitivity, but narcissism. From that moment on, you stepped into emotional cycles that almost only those who have lived through them can understand. One day she was unusually warm, and the next she was so cold she made you question yourself. Sometimes she accused you of being distant. Other times she disappeared without a single explanation. You kept searching for what you did wrong, trying to fix every tiny detail, but the more you tried, the more exhausted you became. And what hurt the most was this: you never knew when she would leave or how much longer you would remain trapped in that emotional spiral. In today's video, we will look at the 4 clearest signs that a narcissistic woman is preparing to walk away from a relationship. When you recognize these signals, you also begin to understand yourself more deeply, that the exhaustion you carry is not because you are inadequate, but because you tried to love someone who does not know how to love in a healthy way. And from that realization, you can finally step out, keeping the peace and self-respect you truly deserve. And then, as you begin to see more clearly the subtle shifts happening inside the relationship, one of the most familiar, yet most easily misunderstood signs slowly appears. It is not loud, not dramatic, and does not display any obvious cracks. Instead, it is so gentle that it can make you believe things are actually improving. Yet precisely within that softness, she quietly steps into the most important phase before leaving a relationship. She begins to reinvent herself. This reinvention does not arrive like a sudden transformation. It slips into daily life in ways so subtle you might miss them at first. It could be a new hairstyle, a wardrobe that feels freer or more seductive, a gym routine that suddenly becomes unusually serious, or healthy habits that appear overnight. She starts posting more photos, polishing her image, and saying things that sound almost philosophical. I want to upgrade myself. I'm trying to grow and live better. I need to learn how to love myself first. It all sounds right, beautiful, and wholesome. And you, with all your sincerity, may even feel happy for her. You think you have created a safe space that allows her to grow. You believe she is changing in a positive way for both of you, but the more closely you observe, the more you feel something quietly slipping away. These changes are not moving toward you, they are moving towards someplace else, a place where you are not invited. Because for a narcissistic woman, reinvention is not a path to healing or genuine self-development. It is the transitional stage she enters right before she exits the relationship. She needs to become a new version of herself, brighter, more charming, more intriguing, a version attractive enough to draw in the next source of supply. When this stage begins, you will notice a very subtle withdrawal. She talks to you less. She no longer shares her feelings like before. She stops asking for your opinion on anything. You become the last person to know what is happening in her life. She still hugs you, still smiles, still sends affectionate messages, but these are remnants of habit, not expressions of connection. You can feel it clearly. She is physically here, but emotionally, she has already gone far away. To outsiders, she looks like she is leveling up, but to you, the one inside the relationship, you can feel the fading warmth, the growing distance, the slow disappearance of the place you once held. For her, reinventing herself is a way of erasing traces of the current relationship, a preparation for her next role, a polishing of her image before she steps in front of a new man, someone she hopes will give her more attention, stronger admiration, and a deeper sense of power. And perhaps the most painful part is this: the process happens in silence. There are no breakup conversations, no fights, no warnings. Yet day by day, she is quietly cutting the emotional threads between you gently, precisely, and without hesitation. A narcissistic woman never leaves in her old form. She must rebirth herself. She must become the most beautiful, most desirable version she can create. She must rebuild her identity before stepping onto her next stage. And if you pay close attention, you will realize this. When she begins reinventing herself, it is not a sign of a new beginning. It is a sign of the end. And when the process of reinventing herself has quietly completed halfway, she steps into the next phase, a phase more subtle, colder, and marked by a very clear test of power. Because for a narcissistic woman, leaving is not merely an ending, it is the final examination to see how much control she still holds. And that power is measured in a very specific way. She tries to make you jealous or make you doubt yourself. The unsettling part is that it always begins in a harmless way. At first, she casually mentions a male co-worker with a normal tone. Then she mentions him a second time, a third time. After that, it becomes someone at the gym, a close friend, a new guy she just met, or even a stranger who has messaged her online. But her tone shifts just slightly, yet enough for you to notice. There is something intentional in it, something challenging, something you cannot clearly define but can absolutely feel. Then come the photos she posts on social media, no longer innocent but purposeful. The way she poses, the outfits she chooses, the captions she writes that are intentionally vague, all of it makes you feel as if you are losing a place you once believed was yours. To outsiders, it just looks like confidence. But to you, the person who knows her, you can sense the message she is sending with precision. Many people still want me, and what about you? She may start smiling at messages from someone, laughing louder when she sees you watching, or talking about someone with a level of enthusiasm that is a bit too much. Sometimes, she drops casual remarks that seem harmless, yet they hit the core of your emotional balance. Someone told me I looked prettier today. 1. My friend said they don't understand why I'm too loyal. I don't know. It just feels like someone cares about me more. These lines are like tiny needles. They do not hurt immediately, but repeated over time, they distort your sense of stability. For a narcissistic woman, the goal of this phase is not to find another man. It is to measure the emotional dependence you still have on her. To her, your jealousy is not a sign of love. It is a sign that she still controls your emotions. If you appear sad, she feels powerful. If you look worried, she feels valuable. If you question her, she feels admired. And if you confront her, she will flip the narrative and paint you as insecure, controlling, or too sensitive. And even if you do not react, she does not stop, she escalates. Not because she wants a new relationship, but because she wants to remind you, you are still part of my game. I can still destabilize you whenever I want. And while you are trying to understand what is happening, trying to fix things, trying to hold the relationship together, she has already left the relationship emotionally long before you realized it. The painful truth of this phase is this: you are trying to repair something that, for her, no longer exists. She is not trying to spark jealousy to strengthen the bond. She is not testing you to make the relationship better. Everything she is doing serves one purpose: to secure her final position of power before she leaves, to make sure that even as she walks away, she is still the one controlling your emotions. Because for a narcissistic woman, leaving is only complete when she knows you will hurt and you will remember exactly the way she wants you to. And then, while you are still trying to make sense of all the emotional games from the previous phase, a completely opposite shift suddenly appears. This is when a narcissistic woman enters her third reaction, the most subtle, the most misleading, and also the most dangerous one. She suddenly becomes strangely kind. No warning, no explanation, no genuine inner change. Just a perfectly timed gentleness, soft enough that you almost want to believe she finally understands the pain you have carried for so long. After months of coldness, avoidance, fragmented conversations, and moments that made you question whether you were loving the wrong person, she reappears with a softer tone, a calmer gaze, and words that sound as if the two of you had never hurt each other. She might apologize, a rare apology that makes your heart soften. She might send you a long message telling you she knows how hard you have tried. Or she might simply ask, "Are you doing okay? I've been thinking about you lately." And suddenly, the chaotic picture from before seems to blur. You begin to wonder if this might be the moment she finally changes, if she is awakening after all the emotional distance, if the two of you still have a chance to start over. But here comes the coldest truth of all. This sudden kindness is not a return. It is the runway she builds before she leaves. A narcissistic woman always wants to ensure that when she lets go of a relationship, she will not be blamed for it. She wants to appear mature, thoughtful, and as someone who tried her best. And to craft that image, she needs to look kind right before she disappears. Statements like, "You deserve someone better. I don't want to hurt you anymore. Maybe we've gone too far and should give each other freedom." They sound compassionate, but in reality, they are a clean escape strategy, allowing her to leave without facing the consequences of the harm she caused. The kindness in this phase does not serve healing. It serves the purpose of wiping her fingerprints off the relationship. And what hurts the most is this. You want to believe that kindness. You are exhausted. You are drained. So just a bit of gentleness makes you feel as if the two of you have returned to the beginning. But the truth is, she emotionally left the relationship a long time ago. What you are receiving now is merely a beautiful goodbye, a choreographed exit ritual designed to make her appear as the one who tried, the one who grew, the one who cared. To you, it feels like a second chance. But to her, it is a farewell wrapped in softness so that when she looks back, she can say she was kind, she treated you well, she did her best. This is not love returning. It is only a thin layer of silk covering a decision she made long before. And if you listen closely enough, you will realize people are often the kindest right before they leave your life. And narcissistic women, they are at their kindest right before they close the door. And then, when the sudden wave of kindness finally settles, when her last trace of softness dissolves into silence, you think every storm has passed. But in reality, this is only the still moment before the final blow, a blow no longer aimed at the relationship, but aimed directly at your dignity. Because this is the final stage of the narcissistic cycle. She turns herself into the victim by rewriting the entire story. This is no longer a series of small battles inside four walls. This is a war fought in the social space where image matters more than truth, where emotion outweighs logic. And a narcissistic woman understands that perfectly well. She never walks away in silence. She walks away with a story. At first, that story sounds gentle. I tried so hard. I endured more than people realize. I just wanted peace. But very quickly, the story shifts tone. She begins telling people that you were careless, that you did not appreciate her, that you caused pain you never even knew about. These things are not said to seek help, but to seek an audience. Because for a narcissistic woman, a breakup is not simply the end of a relationship. It is a competition to see who receives more sympathy, who is believed more, who holds the upper hand in the narrative. And you, despite having loved her sincerely, are pushed into the role of the villain. What chokes you most is not what she says, but how skillfully she says it. She knows when to speak. She knows whom to confide in. She knows exactly which details to highlight to draw tears. And she knows precisely which parts to leave out, the parts that would reveal who she truly is. You hear her words through mutual acquaintances, through social media, through indirect conversations, and you feel betrayed all over again. You suffered enough when you were still in the relationship. Now you must suffer through a distorted version of yourself. Your instinct is to speak up, to say, "That's not true," to defend your dignity, to reclaim the truth, but that is the final trap. A narcissist does not need you to be wrong or right. She only needs you to react. Because every reaction, whether anger, sadness, or confusion, tells her, "You still care about me." And to a narcissistic woman, that is the real victory. The harsh truth is this: she does not rewrite the story to hurt you. She rewrites it to protect her own ego. Because if the story is not edited, she would have to face the one thing a narcissist fears most: responsibility. And, to escape responsibility, she is willing to turn her former lover into the villain as long as she can stand in the spotlight. But remember this: fabricated stories always have an expiration date. True character does not. Observant people will eventually begin to recognize the pattern. Every time she suffers, every time she is the victim, and every time a terrible person walks out of her life. You do not need to speak up. You do not need to correct anything. You do not need to fight for the truth, because the truth has its own power, and stories woven from fear and emotion will eventually unravel on their own. And when you step far enough away, you will see clearly, she never rewrote the story about you. She was rewriting her own story the way she wishes she had been. You only need to walk away. Time will take care of the rest. And when all the chaos, tension, and emotional turbulence finally fade, what remains inside you is not the sharp pain you once felt, but a strange, quiet stillness. No more sudden messages. No more emotional whiplash. No more mornings spent wondering who she would be that day. The arguments stop, the accusations stop, the confusion stops, and what's left is silence. At first, that silence feels heavy, almost suffocating. It makes you question everything. How could someone who once said she loved me walk away so coldly? How could a person I cared for deeply vanish without looking back? But slowly, almost imperceptibly, a truth begins to rise within you. It is in this silence that your healing begins. You start to understand that you do not need her for closure. Real closure does not come from a final conversation or an apology you will never receive. Closure comes from recognizing the truth of the relationship, that you were never not enough. The issue was never your worth. The issue was that she was someone who could never feel satisfied, never appreciate steady, genuine love. When you stop explaining yourself, stop chasing after validation, stop trying to fix wounds you did not create, you begin to come back to yourself. You learn that peace is more important than being understood. You learn that your value does not shrink just because someone else failed to see it. And most importantly, you learn that you deserve a love that does not drain you. There will still be days when memories return like old bruises. There will be moments when you stumble, moments when you wonder whether things could have been different. But that is normal. Healing is never a straight line. Every time you choose calm over chaos, every time you choose silence over reaction, every time you take a step forward instead of turning back, you reclaim another piece of your strength. You are not strong because you did not break. You are strong because you survived a kind of love many people never recover from. Narcissistic people never face themselves, they run from their own shadows. But you stood still and faced the truth, and that is where real growth begins. Now, standing on the other side of the pain, you deserve to hear this. You deserve a safe love. You deserve someone who does not make you question your worth. You deserve peace, respect, and tenderness. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning, the chapter where you reclaim your heart, your identity, and your life. And as you move forward, step by step, you will realize something profound. Her leaving was not a loss, it was a liberation.